Welcome back, guys. In our next session, we're going to be joined by 3 open data program leaders, and they're going to be sharing their experience about what it's like to get their own open data programs going in their government, share some of the lessons that they've learned, and hopefully help you guys learn how you guys can promote your own programs within your own organizations. So please, actually, one second. Before we get started, I also wanted to point out that there's going to be a Q&A session as a part of this, and so there's mics on both sides here. If you can make your way to a mic to deliver your question, that will help everyone in the room hear your question, and it will also help people during the live stream understand what questions are being asked. Okay, so thank you for that. So please welcome to the stage John Ryder, Barb Cohn, and Victoria Lewis.
Hi, everybody. I'm Victoria Lewis. Ooh, this is a deep chair. Okay. And I'm with Montgomery County Government. And we're here to talk to you about different approaches for launching an open data program. So to make sure that we're making this as relevant as possible, we just wanted to poll the audience a little bit. Who here's government? Yay! Who here is local government? So city, county, who's state, federal? Okay, so we have a good mash here. And who currently has a launched open data program? Launched less than a year? Launched over a year? Okay. So today we decided to participate in a panel like this because we have programs that have been launched for over a year and have had some successful results. And we do get calls and emails and inquiries from other governments asking, our opinion on doing different things, like, how are you able to launch your site? How many people are on your team? Do you automate your data sets? What do you do for sensitive data? Have you gone crazy yet? Anything like that. And I think one of the things that I found compelling when I was on the phone with people is that although I was more than happy to help them, because when I started in our open data journey, there weren't that many people to talk to, I felt that I wasn't servicing them as much as I could because they were only getting my perspective. And we're Montgomery County, but we don't necessarily fit the person on the other side of the phone. So John and Barb and I have kept in touch, maybe not weekly, but we've kept in touch to share ideas amongst the 3 of us and actually, some other people too. And we felt that something like this might be beneficial so you could hear multiple points of view. And we were hoping that this could be kind of an interactive session, so there are microphones on the sides, and I think we probably have some Socratic people that can bring questions to the audience if you need it. So don't wait until the end of the session if you don't want to. If you want to ask a question, or if there is something that we're talking about that you feel like you can contribute to, please feel free to do that. So I want to introduce the other people on this panel. Barb, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm the Chief Data Officer of New York State, and I've been there since September 2012. Our open data platform is approximately, I think, 30 months young. We launched in March 2013, and we have an executive order, which really shepherded it along the way. So it's been really phenomenal. We've experienced great success, ongoing growth, and we're really pleased with it. One quick question there's a lot of folks that had come in after Victoria tried to take a pulse of who's in the audience. Of those folks who weren't here when she said that, how many of those people have open data programs right now? Who is about to launch or is thinking about launching an open data program? Okay, great.
All right, John?
Hi, I'm John Ryder, the Open Data Community Liaison for the County of San Mateo in California. You may not be familiar with where San Mateo County is. It's basically between San Francisco and Palo Alto, home to companies like Facebook, Oracle, GoPro, Genentech. But we also have a huge amount of open space and disconnected communities that we have a digital divide that we need to bridge, especially my department in the county. I work in the IT department. We have had an open data program since January 2013, started with open performance in our county manager's office, and they currently manage that program. The open data portal was launched 3 months later, and I started a year and a half ago, so I've had the good fortune of starting to work with a program that already existed. So my advice about starting a program, probably, don't listen to it if you don't think I'm qualified to say it. Also, I just wanted to point out that if you were here last night at the dinner for Open Data Family Feud, we have 2 members of the winning team up here. So you might hear some buzzing in.
Well, I don't know what this says about me, John. So I wasn't chosen. But thank you for pointing that out.
Nope. You're an honorary member.
Excellent.
All right, and just to give a brief intro for myself. Whoa, this microphone is doing strange things. So I run the Open Data Program for Montgomery County, Maryland. We have a size of about 1 million residents. We launched in 2012. We started out actually as a pilot and realized that it was something that fit within our culture and that we were capable of doing something like this. So around the same time that we came to this conclusion, our county council had passed an Open Data Act, which we reacted to with an executive regulation. So we launched in 2012, we're backed by an Open Data Act, we're backed by executive regulation. I am, along with my 2 team members, I'm in the Department of Technology Services. We are backed and sponsored by our county executive's office, and have been, I guess, just rolling ever since. So the format for this session is that we kind of polled amongst ourselves and we asked Socrata the types of questions that people ask when they're either starting an open data program, or maybe they have an open data program but have either hit a roadblock or don't really want to reinvent the wheel for something. So we came up with a list of questions that we're going to give some responses to from our perspective. And I think just to remember that, as you can see, we're very different projects. We have very different perspectives. We might be weighing in on different ways. And I think the thing that we want to kind of get home to people is there's no guide that's going to apply to everybody. Your culture's the same, your resources, or the cultures are different, the resources are different. So if you could just take the time to listen to our perspectives, then you can maybe think about your own project and see what fits for your needs. So, and first question.
Great. And we want to make this as practical as possible, not to speak at high-level euphemisms, et cetera. We really want to make it workable, so there are takeaways. And at the outset, Victoria mentioned the county executive was her sponsor. We have an extraordinary leader in our governor who strongly supports this, and it's so important. I can't stress enough that executive sponsorship, the executive support and executive commitment really has made a difference in terms of our growth and success. And I just think that that's a really critically important point to add to all the questions that we're going to be speaking about. So the first question is, what if you don't have experience with open data? You think you only have X number of data sets to publish right now? What if I don't have enough data? When will I be ready to launch? Actually, you do have enough data. You will have enough data, and you will be ready to launch, I promise. You just don't know it yet. There's no magic number. Every jurisdiction is unique. Every jurisdiction is different. It's a data journey. It's agile, and it's nimble. It's adaptable. It's iterative. It will continue to evolve no matter how many months you've been in operation. It's continuous quality improvements. But that said, what's absolutely foundational is quality, which I'll be speaking about later. The good news is you're not alone. Many have come before you. Even better news, if you haven't started your open data program, you're here today and the last 3 days at the Summit conference. And that's really, really good news, because you should look around you, see who has raised their hand, really leverage that experience, because the more you speak with people from different jurisdictions, the more you'll learn. In addition, look at other networks. The Open Data Network that Saf had highlighted, a really valuable source of information. In addition, look at cities, look at counties, look at states, look at federals, look at the international. There are so many portals out there that really can provide you with a sense of, what's important sometimes. But again, it's unique to your jurisdiction. What is important to your jurisdiction? What are your goals and objectives? Are there specific initiatives, specific priorities for which there's data accompanying that you should be talking to those agencies about? When you speak with agencies, there's a whole litany of questions you might want to use when you get started. For instance, what data do you collect? What data do you maintain? What data do you generate? Great starting points. What about reporting? What kind of legislatively mandated reports do you have? What about your oversight agencies? When you report up to the states or federal governments, what are they requiring? What's that raw data behind it? When you have reports, what is the data that's populating those reports? If there are charts and graphs, if it's aggregate, what's the granular data? What's that raw data that serves to populate that information? What raw data has gone into the summary analysis in some of those reports? So all of a sudden, when you think you don't have data, you really do have a wealth of data. Speak to the agencies, speak to the subject matter experts, speak to the business owners, create a relationship. It's really, really important. They should be your partners in this. It moves things along much faster. They know their data, they know it best. They know what they have in their agency, but with these few questions, you could really start off those conversations and get them thinking, oh yes, what's on my website? What might be in a PDF right now? And what other information do I have that's not machine readable that I could start with? So when you start, you may want to go with the low-hanging fruit, but also try to take those deeper dives into information that's really high value, that'd be really worthwhile for the public. And again, review all the different websites. In addition to which, what's historical? What kind of historical data do you have? Think about recreation data. Think about location data. Think about inspection data. More examples, and I'm just going through a litany of these because, as you search the websites, it'll stimulate the conversations no matter how your jurisdictions are organized, whether you have separate departments for each health and human services, one department for public safety, or multiple departments. These are questions that really should generate the discussions. There's parks data, libraries data, business listing data, budget and expenditures, 311 data, permit and licenses, census data, election data, healthcare facilities, farmers markets, tax data. All this data is out there. So basically, it's taking the time, partner with the agencies, look at their websites, do some research, look at the other networks, and you really, all of a sudden, you'll say, wow, how am I going to release so much data at launch? That will be your problem, and that will become your problem. And I think that there really is a wealth of information. You're in a great place right now, as you can see from everyone's websites, and so I think there's a lot of information out there. And don't worry, you do have the data, and you will launch.
All right. Next item. Do I really need a data set inventory to get started, or pretty much is a data set inventory relevant or needed? So I'm going to tackle this first, and I think John's going to add on. So if you had asked Victoria Lewis back in her time capsule 2 years ago if we needed an inventory, or maybe 3 years ago at this point, we'd just done our pilot, we'd grabbed low-hanging fruit, we had launched a site, yay, no inventory. And then I read the Open Data Act for Montgomery County that required us to inventory all of our available data sets countywide and to provide a comprehensive inventory that will schedule and publish and update on an annual basis. All I thought of is, what did I do to deserve this project? What did I do? Because that's a mammoth exercise. If you think about it, you know, these open data teams typically don't have a lot of resources. You're not well known. People don't know what open data is, and you're wondering and grappling with the necessity for this. Now, fast forward down a year, 2013, we'd come up with a plan on how to do this because we had to do this. We went through a 9-month exercise for the initial inventory, which meant coming up with points of contact for each of our departments that we could educate on open data, help brainstorm ideas, and help collect that initial inventory, do some gap analysis. And on our part, we had to prioritize and schedule all of these items. And it was a lot of work, and we updated annually, which is actually a much less intensive exercise. But what we've learned is that this inventory was actually one of the best things we've ever done. And that's because you really are showing the depth to your residents of the data that you can and will be able to publish, or at least exploring the possibilities of being able to publish it. But even better for our open data team is that we provide an annual schedule of what we publish, and it's based on our inventory. So I think it really gives a sense of trust from the public, that they realize that we went through a really diligent exercise to determine what we had available, what we're able to publish, and it helps give us a plan for the year. So when we had the low-hanging fruit for the pilot, that was fun, but it was also kind of chaotic and all over the place, and you didn't really have a clear message that you're giving to departments rather than what you got. Can you give it to me? You can't? Okay, I'll go to this next person, and you let me know when you're ready, and maybe load it yourself if you feel like it. That just wasn't a model that we felt worked for us or was sustainable. So I think we started out kind of wondering if we were doing this inventory just to kind of fulfill a mandate, but now it's a necessary step for us to do, and it's something that we've realized a lot of benefits from.
Is there a question?
Victoria, so something that's working its way through the California legislature and possibly others is a requirement to produce a systems inventory. So not necessarily a data set inventory, but a full analysis of all the enterprise or ERP systems within each agency. That's potentially sort of more low-hanging fruit than a full data set inventory. Is that something that you guys ever did or something that you'd recommend?
So when we were performing our countywide inventory, we had a few inputs to that process. So we had engaged our county stat team, us, department leads, people that were subject matter experts for departments. But also we had in our hands a systems inventory that was already completed for our county. So it wasn't a sophisticated system that had this list, it was just a list by department, and I wouldn't say it was 100% accurate, but it was a starting point. And so we would sit down with departments and say, these are your core services that you provide, and these are the things that you get measured against, and this is what residents think you do, and these are all the systems that we're showing on this list. So that was definitely something that we used when we were going through ideas to say, okay, well, you have this system, what does this do, what kind of data can we get from that? I wouldn't say it's definitely the only input, because at least for a lot of those, it's hard for people to visualize data sets out of a system. You have to kind of start with the system and maybe some of these other components, like the soft things, like what types of services you provide, and kind of meld them together, and then you can trace them to the system. So it's still valuable, but it definitely shouldn't be your only input, because I think it would confuse people. Yeah,
so San Mateo County still doesn't have a data inventory, even though I desperately want one. But I wanted to echo sort of what Barb was saying about data sets. Like I mentioned, I work in Silicon Valley in an IT department in a government, so expectations are very high. But we also can take the strategies of startups that offer to take out your trash from inside your house. So trash disposal as a platform or as a service. And so what I'm doing is focusing on my MVP, my minimum viable product, for data set inventory. I had the good fortune to start at a program that had already been begun, but there's no data set inventory, and so earlier this year I set out, called meetings, and got everybody together. Let's do this, system-wide data set inventory. Everybody, each department, contribute a person. We're going to work on this together. We're going to have meetings and discussions, and we're going to fill out this spreadsheet. We're going to use the great work of the folks in San Francisco who made all of their data set inventory documentation available. And I have received a draft inventory from one department. So I need to adjust my expectations and think about what's the minimum thing that I can get out of this programmatically to move forward with an inventory. And Kyle stole my thunder with the question, but it's that system inventory that is going to start that conversation, because now I can go and say, okay, let's talk about the systems that you use, right? Which is the first step in the data set inventory methodology I'm using. But then how can we expand that and say, okay, well, what reports do you get out of that? And do that mapping back to what a data set is, because as Barb said as well, there's data in PDFs, there's data that exists that is already shared, but maybe it's not called a data set. So I would strongly recommend don't let a data set inventory and its lack of existence be the first barrier towards your open data program. If I had been asked to start an open data program with a data set inventory, I think it would be nearly impossible, because you have nothing to point to. The concepts aren't there for some people, and so you can't convince them, hey, it's a great idea to contribute to this. Now work with me on this sort of back end kind of stuff. So don't let the lack of an inventory stop you from moving forward.
Okay.
So the next question that we came up with is, I have management backing to publish all of this data. Can I just go get it without dealing with departments and agencies? If you have a centralized IT, maybe. I have a definitive answer for that question, which is no and yes, right? So no, because you shouldn't do that. You're missing out on an educational opportunity to go to these departments, even the ones that don't want to talk to you, and tell them what you're doing and show them examples of what the value of open data is. Also, as we always hear, change is the only constant. So if you just start going out and getting data, scraping PDFs and adding it to the data portal, personnel will change, elected officials will change, and suddenly you may be left holding the open data bag, doing some unapproved things. So that's the no side. And I vacillate between these two answers myself. So on the yes side, the urge to release data is strong. That's why we're all sitting here in this room right now. That's why we're here at this conference. That's why we use Socrata. We want to get data in people's hands. So maybe listen to that and make sure to do it strategically. Like Barb said, there are a lot of data is being released in PDFs in different formats, documents and reports. I've been working with a open data evangelist volunteer from our community on structured text. So taking, for example, our budget and creating structured text that could be embedded as HTML into a department's web page, so you could see that part of their budget, part of the budget on their page. So there are a lot of different ways to go around that. But again, if you're just starting, or you have a minimum number of data sets, that low-hanging fruit is already there, and you need to expand, maybe go ahead and take some data from a department and then show them what it looks like as a data set. Make some visualizations, maybe create a very simple web page that shows a few key graphs and indicators. I know that the data analysts I've worked with They put their tables in a PDF, they publish a report, their work is done, and that's true. But when I show them, here's the data from this PDF, here's what this report looks like as a data set, there's something that clicks with them, and they're willing to sort of take that time to explore a little further.
How do I make sure that we're publishing quality data? I have some notes because there's some key points I really don't want to forget. Open data, there's a lot of data being published right now. And the science and technology is really allowing us to find that white space, to dig really deeper and to know something that we've not yet discovered. And that's where quality of data really comes into play. It's really a gateway. It's a gateway to discovery. It's a gateway to exploration. It's a gateway to analyses, utilization, and reuse. And as Saf said this morning, it's the consumption experience. It's not about necessarily CSVs anymore. It's not just about only the raw data. And the goal is really to put data into the hands of the people, right? Not data for the right people, not data just for the statisticians, but it's really data for everyone. Now, what will facilitate that? What will facilitate that is data that's consumable, that's relevant. It should inform, it should tell a story. It should generate insight. And what's foundational to every single one of those concepts, the data has to be of quality. And quality is driven by standards, guidelines, and our goals and objectives. These are the foundations driving our performance. Quality will enhance and maximize the public's understanding and utility of that data. So there's an impediment to ascribe value to the sheer volume of data sets, the numbers of data sets, et cetera. But realizing meaningful value from that data is really much, much more complex. Relevant, timely, accurate, consistent data is an expectation, and it's not achieved serendipitously. It takes time. So ever cognizant of the end user, the New York State Open Data Portal was developed and implemented as a quality design open data portal. While data is a catalyst for innovation, value is derived from quality data. And I know I'm saying it over and over again, but that's what drives our every movement of every day. And in furtherance of this objective, to maximize that understanding, to maximize the utilization and reuse of the data, we enrich the content, the raw data content, with context. And that's what we're all about. And how have we done this? Well, our Open Data Handbook, the New York State Open Data Handbook, which was issued November 2013, we had launched in March 2013. We issued that, and it has guidelines for the identification, the prioritization of data. It lists a litany of questions, 25 to 30 questions that people should ask about. We have also supplemented that with information to our agencies on a data set submission guide, helping them say, this is acceptable format, this is not acceptable format. Because what open data is, it's a gateway for standardization, a gateway to interoperability, a gateway for linked data. And that's our goal. So it's open data, but it's much, much more than that in the long run. And we have various documents. So on our data platform, no data set is ever published without having the following: a data dictionary, an overview document. The overview document explains a little bit about the agency or the division, its roles and responsibilities. It explains what the data set is. It has data collection methodology, and if a survey tool is used, we'll attach the survey tool. It also has limitations. You know, we have very many legacy systems. Maybe it was self-report back in the 1970s. We want the end user, and the end user is coming from over 195 countries and territories, over 10,500 cities worldwide. Just like ours is, yours is too. It's a global platform. So if we're looking at it from a very narrow lens that we understand our data, everyone else in the world will not, unless you have those documentations. We also want to limit misinterpretation of the data. Data in and of itself is fine, but if you don't have the context, and that's what we really, really strive to do. We also have a sample quality assurance checklist that we provide to the agencies, and we want the agencies to as well do that. So it's agency responsibility, deferential to the agencies as subject matter experts, but we need the contextualization of that data on the platform. And so when we publish that data, it also has the approval. It goes through a whole approval process from the commissioner to general counsel in the agency, to the PIO, to the data owner. We don't want any surprises. We want to make sure everyone understands it. And the contextualization is really critically important. And we've provided the tools out there.
And you said that field guide, is that available for other people?
We haven't had that. It's been a supplemental data set submission guide. We're in the midst of updating it because, as I said at the beginning, we're continually evolving. So it might be that portions of that we'll put out there because the formatting is really important.
Okay. So, our last question before we open it up for just general questions or comments or insight from other people. I've just spent a long time publishing the best data set ever. Why isn't anyone looking at it? Where are all the brigade apps? So I think we all know that there's different ways that our management measures the success for open data programs. And you can't fault them. They haven't sat in these sessions. They haven't been deep diving in open data. They're looking for something tangible that they heard from somewhere else. You know, that city has a whole brigade where they have 3 billion people sit in a room and create things every weekend. And this other data set has had millions of views within its first week. Why aren't we having that? So, you know, I think John and I are going to both answer this question, and I mean, from our perspective, we don't really measure our data sets based on the amount of people that come or the amount of apps that get created off of that, although it's very interesting and we encourage that. I think the question you really need to ask yourself is whether or not your data is reachable for the types of audiences you're targeting. So if you're not getting a lot of momentum for a data set that you find really valuable, you should really think about why. Ask the data set owners why. Because you know that's a very frustrating place to be when you're not only loading this data set, but you're maintaining it, whether it's annually, quarterly, monthly, daily, and you want to make sure that there's some benefits that not only you are realizing from it, but your stakeholders. So I would definitely start with starting to think about what kind of views you can create that maybe can translate your data in a way that you know your audience could understand. Maybe that's a map, looking at your crime data on a map that you can see the incidents within a mile of a resident's house. Maybe that's what they want to see rather than just seeing the table, and instead of the researcher who just wants to see the table. Playing with these data lenses, you know, we just started creating data lenses for data sets, and you know, we've noticed that people are looking at them. I hope that you know Saf's presentation earlier can let us expand on it, because we've had some limited use of it so far. And thinking about even just filtering your data so that you're targeting it for maybe people who've come up to you asking you specific questions. Maybe you should be positioning your data and making sure they realize that they're not going to have to go through this big treasure trove of data to find out what they need if they really don't want to do that. And questions like this is really what started us on our journey with Socrata, where we got in that development partnership to create open budget and open, I guess, expenditures, which for us is Budget Montgomery and Spending Montgomery. We didn't realize what the outcome would be. We didn't know that it was, you know, these governments were going to use it and there was going to be that much excitement. We had a need. We saw that there was this budget and spending data that was being just being like stagnant on our site. So we spent all this time publishing it, and we had a lot of data sets that could be deemed as a lot less valuable, getting more visibility. So, you know, we worked with Socrata to create these apps really to give that data a chance, because clearly when we got feedback from folks that had seen our data set, it was very interesting, but they didn't know what the heck to do with it. So we could have waited for a brigade to come, but we don't seem to have a lot of brigades knocking on our door. Maybe we will sometime, and we do have developers that do some work for us from time to time. But we didn't want to wait for something like that. And if there's something that we could do, and it's not just the financial apps, it's the map, it's the lens, it's, you know, the extra site. If there's something that we could do to get more visibility for a data set or to better explain it, we're going to do it. And then, you know, whatever help we get from the outside, we'll gladly accept. John?
So I didn't mention it at the beginning, but I'm a mighty team of one for the open data side in San Mateo County. My title is in part community liaison, so I spend at least half of my time on community engagement around open data. So I've had the good fortune of having that be part of my job. I mentioned the educational opportunities earlier, but you know, there's an engagement piece where, you know, we all want to tell our story through data. We all want to have great-looking websites that are data-driven, make data-driven decisions, but that may not mean anything to someone unless you talk to them. So I think there's an opportunity to get caught up in, let's add as much data as we can, let's work it, let's make compelling visualizations, let's learn D3 and, you know, make crazy maps that look amazing you can spin around. But there's a level of engagement that not only will drive use of your data, but help you understand what data maybe should be prioritized for release because the community wants it. So one thing that I found difficult when I started trying to do community engagement outside of the county is we didn't have any really big successes to point to. We didn't have any amazing data sets or awesome visualizations. So I just borrowed others. I borrowed stories from San Francisco, which also works really well internally if you can get stories from your peers in publishing data and say, well, in this location, they did this. And then, you know, there's some friendly competition, some benchmarking that goes on. So think about that as a way of engaging internally, especially, but also externally. As we heard yesterday from Jonathan Swabish, very few people, probably people in this room excluded, like looking at data, numbers on the internet. So even if, you know, I've made pie charts, so I apologize in advance, to show what is in the data, right? And then I relentlessly market that, both internally and externally. And what I want is I want feedback. I want someone to say, that's stupid. Why did you make a pie chart? That data doesn't say anything. How come you don't have this other data? So that engagement piece is a huge risk. You're jumping off a big cliff, but it's worthwhile because ultimately that points out to your areas of improvement. Where can you get better? Because, you know, everyone can do that. So it's important to reach out to people to get that feedback and then listen to it and take action based on that. Maybe iterate on your minimum viable product to make it just a viable product with input from the people who use the data. I think that's really important. One thing I did when I started at San Mateo County is we have someone who's in charge of social media, and I quickly became very good friends with her. She's always looking for content, and I'm always looking for ways to let people know about how many more numbers are on the internet from San Mateo County. And so that's been a great partnership because I have been impressed with how many people on Facebook are willing to like the fact that we are releasing data that governments around us have been releasing for years. So that's exciting. The last thing I would say about engagement with the public and where are the brigades is start one yourself. I started a Civic Tech meetup in July. We've had anywhere from 25 to 12 people come. We meet monthly. And now the group has decided that we're going to apply to be a Code for America brigade. So, you know, I'll be the municipal partner for that for San Mateo County. We have someone from the city of Redwood City who's really involved in that. We started this group based on our first public hackathon. There was a lot of energy and excitement there. We had 90 people in the room. We had no idea what we were doing, hosting a hackathon, but it's pretty amazing what people are willing to do and engage with you on, even if you think maybe what you're offering them isn't perfect. So don't let perfection stand in the way of engagement and getting out and talking to people and finding out how they want to use your data if you don't have data to use already.
You know, one thing, I know we want time for questions, what Victoria said about what's available on the platform, leverage the visualizations, the filters, the maps. We do that all the time to contextualize data, especially when data sets are so enormous. We had one that had hundreds of columns. We chunked it out, and so we made it understandable and reachable to the average person, because our end users they are a diverse group, from the least sophisticated to the most technologically sophisticated. So what's on the platform, what's coming with data stories and the data lens, we're really testing, and it's really been really exciting, actually.
Thank you, guys. Well, I have a high level of respect for both of these folks. It takes a lot of nerve, I think, to come up on the stage and to just tell you how it is from our perspective, you know, politics and everything, where everybody wants to seem perfect for these programs. Hopefully the resounding thing that you got from this was that there's just different ways to approach things, so hopefully you can find something that fits what you have going on in your program. If you have any questions, I think we have microphones up here if you wanted to ask anything, or we could be available after the session.
I'm here to pass the microphone.
Okay.
I'm going to start handing it to random people.
I like everything about that.
Okay. I'm Fraser Picard. I'm with the City of Norfolk. We just started, and my champion for open data left after a month.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, it's always a good sign. And unfortunately, upper management was infected with, I would say, open data phobia. And so now the whole project has gotten derailed from the very start. I just am looking for, if that's ever happened to you, and any ideas of how to get something back on track. That's question one. Question two is pretty simple. Just wanting to know if any of you have created data officer, data liaison positions specifically because of the Open Data Initiative.
Yes. My position is much more than open data, the chief data officer. When I came in, this is a good percentage of what I do. It also is to facilitate data analytics, interoperability, data governance, et cetera. Again, open data is a great way. With regard for how we're working really effectively in our executive order, each agency appointed a data coordinator. It's not their sole job. Usually it's on top of other things they do. It makes it, for a point person, much, much easier. And it really, but then again, there's their champion, the executive order, et cetera. We haven't had the experience where something was derailed. One recommendation is to try to talk to people, find out what the benefits are. If you want people to live, work, study, visit Norfolk, it's a great way to show off the city, to message it. So maybe do some proof of concept on your own and show it to the upper management and find that champion. That would be my best guess.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd say start to show the value from the bottom up, meaning find some willing participants in your departments who can tell a story of the benefits. So, you know, we have people that publish data to offload traffic off their department website. That is an easy win for them. We have some that directly respond to typical Public Information Act requests that departments get, and it's offloaded a burden off of a department where they can point people here. There's some people there's departments that don't have a system, period, and use spreadsheets and literally could just use some way to communicate their message to the public of, you know, let's say consumer protection complaints or things that are going on in someone's neighborhood. Just grabbing some of those people that really could benefit and maybe providing a little showcase for your management to help prove the value. And it doesn't mean that you have to start with the sexiest, most dangerous data set to publish. You know, you don't have to publish every check you've ever had just because that sounds interesting. You can publish things, even just showing locations or valuable services in your area, just to kind of start it rolling. So I think we're getting the crook from Marcus. He's polite, but I get the message.
I did want to say one thing that in the spirit of openness, I say this to everyone I talk to when I'm talking about open data in the community. Please contact me. I want to talk to you about your open data programs. I've made some great friends by doing that, and I hope to hear from each and every one of you if you have any questions that you think I might be able to help you with.
And I think we share that sentiment.
Oh, absolutely.
So there's no stupid question, and there's probably something that we haven't actually experienced ourselves before. So
Absolutely.
thank you all for listening to
Thank
us.
you.
And I'm going to turn this off.